Will we see home prices in Idaho continue to drop in 2025? Or is this housing market on the road to recovery? You can see that values in Idaho are actually down 7% from where they were in the middle of 2022, with a modest correction in prices playing out. However, values across Idaho's housing market, including in Boise, Coeur d'Alene, and Idaho Falls, are still way higher than they were before the pandemic, and as a result, many locals in Idaho are priced out of the market. For instance, you can see in Boise, 1,600 square foot new build homes are selling for $550,000 with a $4,000 a month monthly payment. And the reason that values in Idaho went up so much during the pandemic was due to a big influx of people. And this influx of people into Idaho actually started even before the pandemic in 2018, 2019. A lot of people from California, Oregon, and Washington started moving in, with the migration figures peaking in 2021 with 52,000 net people moving to Idaho that year. That set records far and away, 2 times better than any other year in the last 30 years in 2021 in Idaho. Since then, though, the migration has slowed. And that slowing migration is now creating some issues in the local housing market in Idaho. While the prices are still expensive, the buyer demand has dropped off the table and houses are starting to sit for a really long time on the market. For instance, if we go to ReVenture app and look at a data point called days on market, we can see Idaho has a median days on market for houses of 77 days. It's actually one of the higher levels in America, and it's now at the second highest DOM in the last 6 years. So the fact that these houses are sitting longer on the market is incentivizing some sellers to cut the price. In addition, the for sale inventory in Idaho's housing market is now also up to the second highest level in the last 6 years, indicating more supply for buyers to choose from. And the result is a big drop in home buyer demand across the state. This is very important to understand if you're a home buyer in Idaho, an investor, or a realtor, is that the demand levels are way down from the peak of the pandemic, and they're even down from the levels of before the pandemic. Because on this graph, we're looking at the weekly adjusted home sales in Idaho. This is data from Redfin. And home sales, this is a good proxy for home buyer demand, the amount of transactions that are taking place. And you can see at the end of 2024, we had around 551 weekly adjusted home sales in Idaho. Now, this was up from what it was in 2023 and 2022. So there's a moderate rebound in demand from the lows of when mortgage rates went to 7%. However, this sales volume is about 40% below where it was in 2020 at the peak and about 20% below where it was prior to the pandemic. So in Idaho, the buyer demand is down 20% from where it was 5 or 6 years ago. And that's a troubling sign for the local housing market. It means the local home buyers in Idaho can't afford the prices. In many cases, they can't even qualify for a mortgage, while it also means that there's been a slowdown in external buyers moving into the state and paying cash from areas like California and Washington. And one area where we're seeing this reduced demand is Boise. So if we go to ReVenture app and change to county view, and then we isolate Idaho, you can see the areas to the southwest of the state where Boise is have experienced a big increase in inventory over the last couple of years. And then if we look at a data point called percentage change from June 2022, we're looking at how much values have dropped in the last 2.5 years. And you could see here in the southwest part of the state near Boise, we have pretty big price corrections. In Ada County, values are down 9% the last 2.5 years. In Canyon County, they're down 10%. In this county that I'm really going to try not to butcher the name too much, in Boise County, values are down 5%. If we go to the east side of the state in Idaho Falls, values are down around 7%. And if we head to the northern tip of Idaho, we can see some variation as well. In Coeur d'Alene, values are down 3%. In Bonner County and Sandpoint, values are down 7%. Now, most of those value declines came actually in late 2022 through the middle of 2023. That's when there was a pretty stiff correction in the Idaho housing market. And since the middle of 2023, things have stabilized a little bit and values are actually up slightly by about 2% since then. So the question is, what's going to happen to prices in these areas of Idaho in 2025? And to answer that question, I'm going to consult a special score that I developed here at ReVenture app called the Home Price Forecast Score. And this is a score that we've made available for every county and metro in America. It's ranked from 0 to 100. And the closer the score for your area is to 0, the more likely prices are to drop. The closer the score is to 100, the more likely prices are to increase. And we calculate this data point related to the underlying supply and demand trends in the market, so you as a buyer have a better perspective about what's going to happen in the future. And if you go to Reventure app, you can find this data point under popular data. It's called home price forecast. And what you can see is we have some variation across Idaho in where we're expecting prices to head in 2025 here at Reventure app. So the bluer the area looks, the more likely prices are to drop. The redder the area looks, the more likely prices are to remain stable or go up. And we're definitely seeing some heavy downward price pressure in the eastern part of the state. Again, near Idaho Falls, near Rexburg, we have some of the lowest scores. Take a look at this, everyone. In Madison County in Rexburg, we went from a huge seller's market in 2021 to a consistent buyer's market based off a massive surge in inventory. If we zoom in on the Boise area, we can see some variation as well in counties like Boise County, Payette County. We have a more negative forecast for prices in 2025, but in Ada County, we actually have a stable forecast for prices. And this is a really interesting one because Ada County is the main county in the Boise area, and this is an area where prices dropped by quite a bit in 2022 and 2023. However, the market has since recovered here a bit. We went from a heavy seller's market to a heavy buyer's market in 2022 when the Reventure app score in 2022 went to a 29. So on Reventure app, we forecast actually the decline in prices that was going to take place in Ada County in 2023. However, since then, it's bounced back to a stable market. And the reason that's the case is because the inventory levels went up to 1,800 homes in late 2022, but have since dropped back down to 1,200 homes. So the inventory is actually slightly below the long-term average still in Ada County, while the price cut rate is actually also below the long-term average. So if you have price cuts and inventory below the long-term average, that indicates that it's more likely that prices remain stable or go up in the short term. However, Ada County is somewhat of the exception in Idaho, everyone. If we look at these other areas, you can see they're more in blue, which indicates a more negative forecast. On the whole, we have the state at a 45 out of 100, which indicates stable to slightly declining prices in 2025. However, it's important to understand that there's big regional differences in these forecasts. It's not enough to understand what's going on at your state level if you're a home buyer investor. You can want to also understand what's happening in your neighborhood, because after all, real estate is local, and what's going on one block could be very different than what's going on in another block. And if you're a buyer, investor, or realtor, you have to understand these trends down to your local area, which is why Reventure app offers these price forecasts down to the zip code level. So you can see the local forecasts and prices in your market. You can see big differences across Boise and even big differences across a market like Coeur d'Alene. To access those home price forecasts, which are going to be extremely helpful to you as a buyer in 2025, head to www.reventure.app and sign up for a premium plan. The cost of a premium plan is $39 a month. You're going to get access to those home price forecasts as well as understanding how overvalued prices are in your market, in addition to some very valuable demographic growth information related to population, income trends, and property vacancy rates. Now, if you think you're going to be someone who's tracking the market for multiple months, or maybe you're going to buy in the next 6 to 12, I would suggest you sign up for the annual plan on Reventure app. This annual plan gives you a 15% discount to the monthly cost. That's going to be a great option for you if you're someone who knows you're going to be in the market for a longer period of time. So head to www.reventure.app to access that data for Idaho now.